All right, welcome back. If you have not seen our earlier episodes, this is the third episode, but the second time we're going over the wisdom booklets. And oh hey, Karisu. Um,
Yep.
and the wisdom booklets, if you're not familiar, well, the IBLP is the same thing that the Duggars were part of, and the wisdom booklets is their homeschool curriculum. And I'm not going to go. You can watch the other episode, the first episode and the second episode, to get more of an idea about that. Anyway, but so let's
Yeah, we're
go.
not gonna recap stuff.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get right into this one. Um, so the 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 verse for this booklet is
Well, the verse and a half.
yeah, verse and a half is when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying. So
Man, that is a very, very deep prepositional phrase.
yeah,
Like, we gotta know where he was at. He spoke with his mouth. Uh, who he was speaking to, where they came, his disciples came to him. So he was there first. Like there's so much here. So much.
and he was sitting.
Oh, and he sat. He sat.
Yeah. So I predict we're going to talk about a lot about disciples and mouths, probably teaching, and maybe sitting, but I don't know about sitting. What do you think?
I mean, it's disingenuous because I looked ahead.
Well, yeah, that's true. I didn't make notes about what it talked about. Another thing I wanted to point out is down here at the bottom. If you look at the page number, it starts with the next page after the end of the previous book. I'd forgotten about that. Like this is all like supposed to be like one thing.
Yeah.
So, all
Yeah.
right.
These are sold together, not for individual resale.
Yeah. All right. So page 32, we've got the words for the book. Sit, disciple, open. I didn't catch open. Did I? Nope, I said mouth. And taught. Let's see. All right. So this is where we start getting into sort of the meat of it. So this first highlight here I have, it says, there's a basic similarity between the study of mathematics and the pursuit of discipleship.
Whoa.
What?
Where are you jumping to?
The first highlight on page 33?
What about page 31?
Oh, did you have something to say?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Bring it up.
You can't skip 2 pages.
Okay.
So dang it, where's my notes? So, as we discussed, they've got this verse that says he went and he sat somewhere and, that stuff. But the format here I find to be very problematic.
Okay.
Because there's like, all right, how well do you understand the concept of communicating truth? This seems like a worthy statement, worthy question. I don't see how it has anything to do with the verse, but okay. And then it has this true false question, as if you're supposed to be, doing this like schoolwork, because this is schoolwork.
Sure.
And then it goes, many followed Jesus simply for healing. Therefore, he went up in the mountains, he sat down, and those who came to him would know and that he would receive teaching. Now it says to read Corinthians 4:2. I don't know why we want to read Corinthians 4:2.
Did
But
you?
then it says, I did.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't say anything about this either. But then it goes, what does this tell us about the message and gimmicks used to get people into hearing the gospel? True, false.
Okay. Well, okay. See, I after the first one, after the first wisdom booklet, I just skipped this first quiz because it's like kind of silly. But you're right. Let's see. Are any of these questions true false.
What? Well, first off, you are one of the smartest people I know. All right. So, given the question, what does this tell us about methods and gimmicks used to get people into hearing the gospel? Is your question. Your cited source is, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, okay, that's all
Okay.
your information. True,
Well,
false.
Corinthians 4:2, 2 Corinthians 4:2. Let me pull that up.
You're like, I can't do this. I need more information.
Well, I just don't
Good,
want
good
to.
luck.
I don't want to.
Good luck.
I don't want to miss context, just in case to see.
Sure,
All
sure,
right, so
sure.
I'm going to read this out of the World English Bible. Okay, but we have renounced the hidden things of shame, not walking in craftiness, nor handling the word of God deceitfully, but by the manifestation of the truth, commending ourselves to every man's conscience in the sight of God. Okay, so
Right. Okay. So now that you've considered that, true or false?
True. Yeah. I would have to say true for sure.
What?
Yeah, it what does it teach me about here if I had to answer with true or false, I would say that it teaches me to only use true methods. There you go. That's my answer. My final answer.
I don't know how you got that. Because I'm like, Jesus sitting down and talking to his disciples has nothing to do with gimmicks or methods used to hear the gospel. 2 Corinthians 4:2 has nothing to do with Matthew 5, other than being in the same Bible. So you can't pull from two concepts together and build something. So I would say this says nothing about it.
Yeah. No.
Other than maybe we're supposed to tell the gospel. Maybe. Even that's not said.
So whoever had this book and scanned it, they answered the question false.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I can see that. Well, if you look real close, you can see an X over both.
Yeah. Well, I think that might have been the person grading it.
Right,
Put
right.
the,
And
put
then
the X
because it
over
says
both.
total correct is 4.
Yeah.
So there must have been an answer key.
Yeah, I mean there were teacher books, and actually I didn't download it, but there is a teacher booklet for this booklet on the website that these are available on. It's the only one I think that has the parent teacher key. So somebody went through this and answered the questions true or false and put that in the teacher key. Somebody did this.
Right. And I don't know, man. That shows either a terrible, terrible pedagogy, like just a horrendous way of organizing a curriculum and understanding what you're testing things over.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me that these people did not know what they were doing when they decided to write educational material?
I'm positing that either that is true or this is like some 4-dimensional chess for brainwashing, and I'm not yet sure which.
I mean, it's both. It is both. That's all it is. But this in particular, I mean, I don't see how you get brainwashed by having not true false questions and saying it's a true false answer.
Really?
I don't know how that gets.
Because this is laying the groundwork for how they're going to lie later when it does matter. Like this verse is not about anything important. This is a preposition verse. Jesus came here, he sat here, he talked to them, and they're going super deep over it because it's innocuous. But later, when they get to things like that do matter, like matters of faith and matters of doctrine and matters of like, here's what the future of the world is going to be and why you need to raise your kids like this, and then they lie in similar way but about different things, and it's not innocuous. You've already built the programming and the system for believing whatever the fuck this group says because you've read through these innocuous verses. and assigned meaning to them that you just were like, it doesn't matter.
Well, sure. And we talked about that last week, but I was specifically talking about, I don't know how giving a true false answer, a possible answers for a question that's not a true false question. I don't know how that does brainwashing. That's just bad misunderstanding
Well,
English, I think.
except that I feel like it forces a false reality. Like this is gaslighting,
Yeah, maybe.
because as a kid, I was supposed to do true false questions. And so I would assume that I am wrong, not the book. That's not true. I always thought the book was wrong. But then my parents would be like, "No, that's not true. You just got to do true false." And most parents aren't gonna read the questions anyway or go over it with their kids.
No, they're
So
going to just go by the answer key.
right. So you're belittling your kids and gaslighting them into, doesn't matter what you think or believe. What I believe is true, and you just need to accept that and do this. And if you weren't so dumb, you could answer these questions. And so the kids just fucking try, and none of it makes any sense. And so they are taught to rely on not their own eyes and their own reasoning, but the reasoning and eyes of their parents, who are relying on the reasoning and lies of this organization, all building the idea that your reality and your perception of reality stems from God and this cult rather than your own perception.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I remember last week the questions were true false questions. That's why I just kind of ignored these, because they didn't really have anything to do with the rest of the book, and I was just like, well, and I didn't even look at them in this one. I need to take a better look at the questions in book 3.
Don't let them get anything by you, man. They're after
Yeah,
your brain.
yeah, for sure. You ready to move on, or do you have more pages?
Um, well, I mean, so that was not the only question.
Yeah,
Because like,
I just read all of them. None of them are true false questions.
yeah, none of them are true false questions. And also the original cited source, when he was said, his disciples came unto him, he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, doesn't tell us about the importance of physical conditions, doesn't tell us about Christ warning not to cast your pearls before swine, uh, doesn't tell you that you should have musical skits, uh, doesn't tell you that you should let truth do the shouting, um, doesn't say that you should let God change leaders and stop arguing with leadership, and it doesn't say that based on this, is it God's will to reach the lost by using worldly music or methods to gain acceptance for the gospel.
Yeah.
This has,
Oh,
but
I think I figured it out. The bold part is the true false. You're supposed to read the bold part, and is that bold part true or false? And then the question is just like thought provoking questions.
I would say thought directing, not thought provoking.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's like in an honest educational material. That's what this would be.
Right, but also the bold parts are also not informed by the cited scripture.
No,
You are
no,
supposed to be you are extrapolating meaning that does not exist in the context of the Bible, which
yeah,
should be blasphemy to a Christian.
yeah. I don't know. I never had a good understanding of what blasphemy was, other than it's the thing that if you do it, you will go to hell no matter what, because God can't forgive blasphemy. But like, I never understood what blasphemy was. So
According to my understanding, the blasphemy is to say in God's name something that is not true. So for the purpose of controlling other people or making them do evil.
hmm.
So like if you knowingly said from the pulpit or as a Christian, these things are what God wants you to do, and they are not, then you are guilty of taking God's authority and using it for your own purpose.
Well, sure, but I've also heard, blasphemies like, what is it? Misattributing the works of God to not God. I mean, no one can say for sure this is what blasphemy is, and that's kind of a control mechanism. Like everyone's afraid to do all these things because no one knows what it is.
Right. Well, when I was saying this blasphemy is taken from like the Midrash, and then early Christian teachings.
Okay. All right, you ready to go to the next page?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Do you have any notes for this page? I just had
I mean,
what the words were.
do you want to try and sight read Weave a Story to Tell the Nations? Or do you remember the song?
Uh,
Because I don't.
no, I don't. I'm not going to try to sight read that. Not tonight.
um, there's also like on page 32,
uh-huh.
the word disciple literally means discipled or disciplined one.
Yeah.
That's not what it means.
Okay. I didn't look it up. I don't know what it, I mean, I think it just means follower, doesn't it?
A follower or student of a teacher, a leader or a philosopher.
Okay.
But real good to tell kids, if you want to be a disciple, you are a disciplined one, because boy howdy, you're going to get disciplined
Right.
in this cult.
For sure.
And that's not nice.
No, no. Anything else on this page?
Looking through my notes. I mean, other than just, my gosh, are they going beyond what Scripture says?
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like I'm excited to get to some of the later pages because there's a lot of
yeah,
stuff in there.
right. But the power of a message given through the spirit of the messenger is expressed in voice inflection, pauses, emphasis, and eye contact, which is an
Yeah,
awful lot from he taught them saying.
yeah, yeah. It's so like how much they add into the text to make to change the character of Jesus. Like
Yeah,
we don't know what his voice inflection was, or pauses, or emphasis, or eye contact was. They're just, they're saying, nope, Jesus did this and he did it perfectly. And you're like,
yeah.
how do you know that?
Like, I can hear Bill Gothard's voice being like, the power of a message given through the spirit of the messenger is expressed in voice inflection and pauses and emphasis and eye contact. As if, like, let me put that holy authority on myself because clearly I'm an exemplar of what this is. Um, but yeah, just super going beyond scripture, reading into all the things it says. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's what I got.
Okay. All right. So here on page 33, I'm going to start with, I assume you don't have anything on the first paragraph. So I'm going to start with the second paragraph where my first highlight is. It says, there is a basic similarity between the study of mathematics and the pursuit of discipleship. Both require personal discipline and strict obedience to absolute laws and principles which develop godly behavior. And
That's not how math works.
no, that's not how math works. My note was studying mathematics requires obedience to the laws that develop godly character. And that's I mean that's just not true. It's but they're so
You
they
don't know. Maybe Christ in, like the book of Judas was like PEMDAS, parentheses, ellipses, or sorry, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, uh,
addition and subtraction.
addition and subtraction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and what, so that's the verse that's missing. He sat on the stone and he taught his disciples saying, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Uh, I
But
before E.
yeah, so but I mean I think I say this is because like they really know the mathematics is the only thing they can hang a hat on that is actually real. And
Okay.
and so they're trying to like they really have to nail in that mathematics come from God. Because
Mm.
everything else they talk about is made up, completely made up. But if you get
What are you
to
talking about? They've got a scripture reference every 2 lines. Just because they know you're not going to look it up doesn't mean that they didn't cite their sources.
sure, but what I'm saying is like the concepts that they're talking about, they're all made up. But mathematics, like assuming they teach mathematics, which they don't, and we'll get into that again because I think that's going to be probably be a running theme in this series. Uh, uh, but if someone were to learn mathematics, they would say, "Oh yeah, mathematics works because that's because of how we've developed mathematics. It does work. That's how we model reality." Anyway, so the next three highlights, I kind of they're one kind of idea I had. It says, "What is the significance of the suffix ology used in academic courses?" The suffix ology means the science of or study of. In 500 BC, Heraclitus put forth the notion that logos or abstract reason was the organizing principle of all reality. Thus, ology is often used as a suffix in naming area words naming areas of study which offer the reason for a particular portion of reality. Christ is the true logos, and we must therefore see every scientific discipline through its relationship to Jesus Christ. And for one, this whole idea of so it strikes me as a bit of Platonic idealism, which is not something I would have thought they would be into. Uh, and then it says also because my other note was because Jesus was called a word that uses the same root as ology, it does not mean that science is related to Jesus, but they're certainly trying to make it that way.
Uh, this is 500 BC, man. Uh, you don't know about the Greek words. It says logos.
Yeah.
Right. You're just supposed to accept that they're talking about things you don't know and accept it as truth.
Well, sure. Yeah, but I'm just saying, yeah. That I'm just saying they're using the etymology of words and just saying, oh, because the etymology matches, they mean the same thing. So
This reminds me of a character in a comic strip uh that believes he's intelligence, like believes he's intelligent, um, but very obviously just makes up words. Um, or he's like, well, as you know, adults are well known for their responsibilism. And like they're like, yeah, these make the same because of etymology, because words, Greek, 500 BC. Anyway,
yeah,
moving on. We're right.
yeah. I had a guy tell me this week that the way to know how a word is supposed to be used is to look up the etymology. And I was like, that's just not how that works. The word only means what I use, what I mean when I say it. But
Oh, I hate that.
yeah, people who try to wordsmith you on the meanings of words because the dictionary says it's something that's so ridiculous. I mean that it helps, but it doesn't affect what I'm trying to communicate. The next highlight I have, or did you have any more? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Something happened?
No, I was just asking if you had any more.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. The next highlight I have is if the laws and regulations in a family, church, or nation are to be effective, each individual under the law must accept its discipline. And my note on this was you were right. They're bringing in the whole umbrella structure
Yeah,
pretty quickly on. I should have known they would. I I mean the whole that's one of their pillars.
yeah. I mean, the they really don't need to say family or church for that sentence to uh, be complete and have law-abiding citizens.
True.
Okay, like the laws and regulations of your nation are to be effective. Each individual under law must accept its discipline. But he wants to throw in family and church there, even though family and church shouldn't really be a place of law and regulation.
Yeah, well, family shouldn't. The church, there's certain times where the church would have regulations. I mean, any group you were a part of is going to have like codes of conduct that you have to be in part of that group to be part of that group.
Yeah, but not laws, regulation, and discipline. Like most places have codes of conduct, but the code of conduct discipline is you got to go if you break the rules, or maybe you got to pay something for that you broke.
Sure.
Not you behaved contrary to the rules, and so now we must punish you.
Yeah.
And that is, I feel like that is clearly what they're talking about here,
Yeah, probably. Um,
because there's
oh, go ahead.
the laws and regulations of a nation are not set to for guidelines to make you better. Uh, they are laws, they are rules, and you get punished for breaking them. Like they're to establish the public peace,
Yeah.
and they're trying to put that authority onto families and churches, and it does not belong there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. You have anything else in the second column that you had notes on?
No, no, go ahead. Sorry, man.
No, that's fine.
I feel like I'm holding you up.
No, we're good. I mean, we'll just keep going. We may not get through this book today, but we'll go through as much as we can. Um,
You're a book today.
yeah. Okay, so my next highlight is how does God use the motivation of winning to encourage discipleship? Paul used running a race as an analogy illustrating the winning in the Christian life. And my only note is on this is just I thought it was weird because this is in the medicine section and like there's nothing about medicine at all here. I just thought that was kind of weird.
Um, Also, if you were not a uh knowledgeable Christian and you were just learning this, Paul used running a race as an analogy. Um, has nothing to do with Matthew 5. Like, I can imagine a non church person reading this and being like, "Who's Paul?"
Sure. I don't know. It's for what they're trying to do with this series of booklets is tie Matthew 5 to like all of scripture. And so in their minds like at least that's what it seems like. In their minds all of scripture is like not Matthew 5 but the Sermon on the Mount. All of scripture is kind of like pointing to the Sermon on the Mount. At least that's what it seems like.
Right.
And so I mean I guess
Right.
that's why they feel free to bring in whatever verse because all of scripture, I mean the Sermon on the Mount was like well other than as far as like teaching and doctrine, the Sermon on the Mount was the climax of of the Bible. It's the focus of the whole Bible. Because it's like the time where God himself comes down and says, "Hey, this is how you should be." You know? And it's like I think there's a couple of times where he does that as well. And uh but this is like the most, like, I don't know, it's the most dense part of the Bible where he's telling people, where God himself is telling people where how they should be in person. Anyway, I think that's why they focus on the Sermon on the Mount.
Sure. I I mean, I get that. I don't think I like it.
Sure. All right. Do you have anything more on that page?
No, it's cool.
Okay. Um Page 34. Okay. This first, so what is the hidden lesson of the Maccabean revolt? Um yeah. The That's such a weird thing to say to me now, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to highlight this concept that it pervades all of the IBLP, which is everything that happens in life, no matter how mundane or uh how normal it is or how abnormal it is. Everything has, not just because of what's happening in the spiritual world, but it's also there's analog events that mirror what's happening in the spiritual world. And that's what the hidden lesson is going to be about. It's, hey, this Maccabean revolt, well, what's the spiritual analog of the Maccabean revolt? And what can we learn from the spiritual analog or whatever? And it's getting you into thinking, oh, looking in around the world and everything that happened, to say, oh, not only what am I doing that caused this to happen, uh like magical thinking wise. Like, I mean, obviously, like if I drive too fast and I run off the road because I'm driving too fast, that's a physical, like, consequence of what I was doing. But also, like, well, God allowed me to run off the road
Right.
because I fell asleep in church on Sunday or something like that, you know.
Right.
It's that, but also, how am I running off the road spiritually? And everything in life happens like that. It all has a spiritual meaning. It all has a spiritual cause, and that's what they're trying to get with this. And it's going to be a running theme. It's something they do a lot. It's as pervasive as the umbrella.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand how you get to here from what you read. Not to mention, like, the Maccabees?
Yeah.
Like, I'd wager 9 out of 10 people don't even know who the Maccabees are.
I mean, I knew there was a thing. I don't know much about them.
Right. But, like,
I
you were
did. I
raised
mean,
in
I do kind
church.
of know because I read the story that's later on in the book about it. But
Right.
but before that, I wouldn't have known anything other than it is a thing that happened, and that it was a revolt again by the Jews against whoever was in charge of them at the time.
Rome.
No, it wasn't Rome. It was before Rome. It was the
Was it?
yeah, it was the after Alexander the Great died, like, his empire split into four empires,
Yeah.
and it was the one that was in charge of Judea at one of those four empires. I forget which one it was. I think
Oh,
salute
I'm
sell.
cross I'm
Go ahead.
Seleucids?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I was crossing them with another word that says a much later on, opposing Titus.
Oh yeah, no, that's after, that's when the second temple was
Right,
destroyed.
right.
Yeah.
I
No,
see. So bringing it Maccabees, like, I'm pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, and I don't know what it's talking.
Yeah. And then the second one I have highlighted here is how does math build character? And it's just, you know, uh, my note on this is they think that if someone has a character quality, it will apply in every aspect of a person's life equally. You know, I might have discipline in like doing math, but that doesn't mean I have discipline in other thing in other parts of my life as well.
Well, that
And,
also precludes the idea of people who are savants at math.
right, right. I mean that's but yeah, it means that like a person with character, it doesn't have character unless they have character in all aspects of unless they have that same character in all aspects of their life, and that's just not how people work. And I mean, it's I if I would even say they're using that maliciously. They're because they know that's not how people work.
It is if you want them to be fueled by guilt.
All right. Do you have anything
And
on? I mean, this is just
no, go ahead.
the table of contents, and I just picked those out of it.
Sure, sure.
All
Let's roll.
right. Here we go. This I did you. So this is what is an advanced trading journal? This is where you record work your own stuff uh through going through these booklets. Do you remember doing that? I don't remember doing that.
Man, I tried so many different journaling systems over the years. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't even tell you which one this is.
Okay. Yeah. Another note. Have you heard the podcast I Pray You Put This Journal Away?
Uh, nope.
Okay. So it's a guy who's autistic and he found his journal when he was an adult, but he grew up with the Duggars and like in and at their church and so he did this podcast where he just reads through his journal entries. Um and he's out of the IBLP now, but he was in the IBLP when he was writing the journal and he just talks about his experiences and his kind of how he views those events in his life now, and it's really interesting. Kind of
Man,
kind of heartbreaking, but yeah, it would.
I wish.
I didn't keep a journal back then. I know I tried, and I just never had. I never had the I don't know the diligence to keep with it for more than a week.
Right.
But it would be kind of interesting to be able to go back and see what I was thinking at the time and say, oh man, young Sam, you just had so much to learn.
Right. I wish I still had some of my journals. An ex-girlfriend took them.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why. Like what? For 4 journals of Bible study and sermon notes and scribbles from me in my 20s.
sure.
I don't know why that gal decided she wanted those, but
Huh.
it's okay.
Yeah. The other thing I had about this thought was it makes me wonder if there's some ulterior motives here. If you can get the kids to write in a journal, the parents now have access to that. To,
Oh, that's not why you give kids journals.
yeah, but so there's that. Do you have anything on this page?
Nah, go ahead.
Okay. Uh, page 36 is missing, so we're now went from 35 to 37. So I have no idea what was on page 36. There may not even been anything on it. Maybe that's why they skipped it. But my first highlight is the world will translate this dynamic as genuine enthusiasm. And my note is just they're trying to differentiate the world's perception from a true Christian perception.
A
Uh,
true Scotsman would never do that.
I know. Uh, and the next one is the main word elements are N and Theos, and I already talked about this. I hate people who argue from what a word means, because it doesn't matter what it means. It's what matters is what I'm trying to communicate. And if I use the word wrongly, that doesn't change what I'm trying to say.
I
Um,
mean, it does kind of make sense to talk about what a word means in the context of a translated document.
sure. Now that I would agree with, because you do want to try to understand what the person who wrote it was saying, and you can't just ask them.
Right.
You can't clarify. So there is some interpretation, and that does help with that.
I mean, that is one of the hardest things in biblical study
Right. Sure.
is you want to be able to keep context of what the original author meant and who he was talking to at that time. Because if your interpretation uh, is completely different than what the original author meant or what the original people heard, it's very likely you are in error.
Sure. Yeah. Um, but in this case, they're trying to say the word enthusiasm. They're trying to tie enthusiasm to being from zeal for or from God, and they're using the etymology of the word enthusiasm to say, nope, enthusiasm. It's not enthusiasm if there's not God involved,
Yeah, yeah,
and
no,
that's
it's
just
totally bogus in this case. I was speaking on topic on something that's off topic.
right. Okay. Then we got the next two highlights. We've got enthusiasm can be generated by our emotions or by our spirit. Storing up enthusiasm in our emotions is like trying to start a poorly tuned car on a weak battery. Each attempt to start the car becomes more difficult. And then, uh, if we're properly motivated, both people and vehicles function best when they operate in harmony with their designer's intent. And it's just to me, I said my note is this just seems like a bunch of metaphysical nonsense. But they are trying to say that true enthusiasm only comes from the spirit. If your enthusiasm comes from emotions, it will not last.
Right.
And I mean, it's just I would say, I mean, obviously, I don't believe a spirit exists, so like it only comes from your emotions, and I think enthusiasm does come and go. That's just kind of how it is.
Yeah. I mean, it almost sounds wise, like they're talking about the difference between uh motivation and discipline.
Yeah,
Like the reason that uh gym memberships spike in January and then fall off pretty rapidly.
sure. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything on this page?
No, go ahead.
All right. Let's see. We got page 38. Um. Okay. So here, this story is about this guy who, uh, the next few pages are a story about this guy who, was playing professional baseball in the early 1900s, got fired from his job, or from being a being on the team, and had to go to like a farm team or something, and then he went to become a salesman. And it's a he's one of those like an uh an early version of those self motivator speakers, like those grifters are. Um,
You know, it could be useful.
what?
Grifters, motivational speakers. I mean,
Yeah. But anyway, so this highlight, it says he'd just gotten going down. He'd been being paid at 175 a month at the old team, and now he's only getting paid 25 a month. This is why I couldn't feel very enthusiastic on that kind of money, but I began to act enthusiastic. And my note in this is just like the last time, where they made a list of the right way to use discernment versus the wrong way to use judgment. And then in their example, they use judgment all the way down. They're doing the same thing here.
Oh yeah.
The person in their story isn't getting the enthusiasm. He's pretending to be enthusiastic. It's like I don't even understand how they could fumble this so badly. Like I don't know. It boggles my mind that they would say, "Oh yeah, this is a good story about enthusiasm," and the guy says, "I didn't have enthusiasm. I just acted enthusiastic."
Right.
It's like, well, okay, great object lesson there. Do you have any notes on this page?
No, I mean, I like that the wisdom on high from the cult is fake it till you make it.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay, next page. Okay. Oh, I just this is kind of funny. And I know they didn't write this. Well, when I first read it and I highlighted this, I didn't realize they didn't write it. I've at some point, we'll get to that. I have a note about it later. So, okay. So they say 25 a month to 185 a month, an increase of 700%. And my note in this is 25 to 185 is not a 700% increase. It's a 740% increase. This is not being disciplined about mathematics.
I was gonna say I don't like. I can't do that math in my head, but that didn't feel right.
Yeah.
How do you get your math wrong in your math textbook?
I know, right? It's just so.
And like one of your very few examples of math.
Yeah, but like I said, they didn't write this. I didn't realize it when I highlighted that. So like they just copied it out of somebody. The guy who wrote this in 1949 wasn't disciplined about his math because that wasn't the point of his book.
That's awesome.
So the other thing is, the guy in this excerpt and in his book, I assume elsewhere, references Dale Carnegie. Do you know who Dale Carnegie is?
Like Carnegie Hall Carnegie?
No, it's a different guy. Dale Carnegie. Have you ever heard the book How to Win Friends and Influence People?
I have heard of that book.
Okay. So Dale Carnegie is the guy who wrote that book. And the book itself, if you've never read it, it's a glorified manual for how to be a used car salesman. It's full of methods on how to get people to like you so that you can manipulate them.
Makes sense. I assume that's what it was.
Yeah. I mean, and there's, it's always, the whole thing is like, people like you more if you do this and not that, or people like it when you do whatever. And it's like, and then you can sell to them. And it's like, holy crap. This is a handbook for grifters. This is not a handbook for being a good person.
Well, yeah.
But yeah. So I just thought it was interesting. I mean, obviously they've taken some ideas from Dale Carnegie as well, but in the IBLP, but they look at this fake person and are like, yeah, that's who we want to be, and we're going to teach you how to be good Christians by trying to be this guy. So, do you have anything on this page?
No, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So my first note is on this page is I before I got to this last page, I was like curious because I was like, this story sounds, it's either made up because there's like some lack of detail. You know how some preachers will just make up stories about things that didn't really happen. And so I was like, okay, did they make this up or did this really happen? And so I searched it and I found that they had taken it verbatim. I was like, oh my God, they plagiarized this. But then I saw this citation at the end and I was like, oh, okay. They at least cited the source.
Okay.
But I spent a page of reading it thinking they'd plagiarized the whole thing. And I don't know if they had permission to republish this. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but at least they didn't plagiarize it. And then the second highlight. So it says one day this is about a guy who wanted to be a Marine all his life. He joins the Marines, and one day, a seasoned Marine drill team put on a demonstration for the men in training. The young man was thrilled and awed until he overheard one of the Marines make a comment, which destroyed all his joy and excitement in being a Marine. The old Marine said, "I'm glad to get this over with. So good. I'm glad to get this over with, so I can get out of this lousy uniform." My note on this is don't ever show their point is don't ever show a lack of enthusiasm because you might cause someone else to stumble. And it's just that manipulation to fake it till you make it, but not only that, fake it so that you don't cause someone else to fail because you're not faking it. I mean, it's just self-reinforcing bullshit.
Well, also, like, that's a lie. Like, the idea of not saying, I want to get to that, I get out of this lousy uniform, um, being something you're not allowed to say means you want to hold in part of yourself. You want to hold in part of your truth so that you don't uh, upset somebody, as if it's very important that uh, every Marine loves their uniform. I don't believe that's true.
Well,
Like,
sure.
and so, like, one of the problems with churches is that you have to do this kind of behavior. Like, you can't say, man, I really wish that I could just go to the Green Day concert and not have you guys judge me.
Yeah, yeah. Or I really wish. I mean, like it's same thing. Like you can also, it's like having doubts. You can't have any doubts in
No.
church. Like if you show doubts, that's like really bad about anything. So you just don't have doubts. You don't, or at least you don't ever express those doubts.
Or if you have questions about the theology of the scripture.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this doesn't make sense. Can someone explain it to me? Well, how can you doubt transubstantiation?
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I can't spell it.
But yeah. So I mean, it's just more. It, I'd never realized how much they wanted you to be fake when I was growing up, you know?
You're not supposed to think about that, man.
Yeah. No, you're obviously. Do you have anything on this page?
No, we covered it.
Okay. The next note I have is on page 46. Do you have anything between those pages?
Let
We
me
got
look.
Greek words here, which of course we do.
I mean, can't say I really cared about the Greek stuff. It's mostly just for showing off.
Yeah. Um, all right. And so now we get into the story about the revolt of the Maccabees. And it talks about, these sons who started a rebellion in some town because the emperor was forcing them to sacrifice pigs on their altars.
Jerk.
Yeah. And so they revolted. Um and so my note here is uh when evil rulers like Antiochus Epiphanes afflict God's people, it is usually God's judgment for apostasy among his people and God's motivation for his people to call out to him for deliverance. And it's more that, like I think I've mentioned it before already. It's that, things don't just happen because people are being bad. Bad things happen to you because you did something wrong. Like
Right.
like and they will get into this later, I think. But they say there's three different kinds of sickness, but and they say that in theory, but in practice it's always the one kind that's you did something wrong. It's never the other kind of sicknesses.
Right. Right. Very much a just world fallacy.
Yeah, okay. I got some Deviant says exactly, Phantom X11 and Martell, you are both are very correct. And again, the underhandedness of this educational. Oh yeah. I mean, this is just this is bad. It's trying to keep, and oh, she says it's the underhandedness of this educational material for children too young to have developed serious critical thinking skills is, and there's an emoji with tape over their mouth. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's trying to keep you from developing those critical thinking skills for sure. Then we got because you're not just responsible for your own salvation, you're responsible for everyone else's salvation too. Fake it till you make it, or grandma will burn in fire for eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about God's responsibility? Well, he's only responsible for the good things, and when he does bad, it's on you too. And it's called divine judgment. And divine
Right.
judgment is always a good thing, even when it involves killing of children. I mean, absolutely, even that's 100% correct. Uh yeah. Anyway, so yeah, one thing this whole story, one of their points about this whole story is uh they want to point out that what the Maccabees did resulted in devastation for the Maccabees, the Maccabee brothers. The father survived, but all the children were dead. And what God wants us to do is, if we have to resist authority, nonviolent resistance is the only thing God wants us to do. And like, I mean, I don't think it's by accident they say, oh, if you have to, if don't resist authority, but if you have to, do it nonviolently.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any questions or thoughts on this?
It's a weird time to bring up nonviolent protest. And again, boy, that's
What do you mean? Because they talked about the Maccabean revolt?
well, that and also like again, the cited scripture is Jesus went up to a mountain, sat down, and talked to people.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have a whole lot of, it doesn't seem like there's a direct line from that to this for sure. Uh, yeah. Okay. I have overall notes for the next section, which is I want to read the character qualities and definitions and see whether we think they actually apply to mathematics. Oh yes, we're talking about mathematics.
Ah, yes, that's my
Uh
favorite subject.
yes. And again, this is how they teach mathematics. We're not just learning, this is, we're supposed to be learning how to do mathematics. So,
Ah, here's where we get to PEMDAS.
yeah. All right, so first character quality is this is a list of character qualities that you learn by or you develop by learning mathematics. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
wisdom, which is seeing life from God's perspective. How do you think that applies to mathematics?
Um, well, when it was found that the zero had eaten the fruit of the garden and become sinful, then the 77 sent the number 7 to sacrifice himself for the 3. So that I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we probably won't do that because that's just going to take up time and like,
No, go ahead. I want to see how they tie math to Jesus sitting on a rock and telling people stuff.
well, I mean, yeah, but also like the character qualities, they're not teaching math. They're saying, but by, hey, we're not going to teach you math, but by learning math, you'll get all these character qualities. And let's like here, boldness, confidence that what I have to say is true and right and just in the sight of God. I mean, there's just no through line from mathematics to that. There just isn't. It's just weird.
So that's why I kept telling my teachers they were wrong. It's because I learned this and I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm being bold with my math.
Yeah.
Screw you, teacher. Multiplication's not important. I'll just do a lot of addition.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing I did, so this first one, I mean, I just made the point, they're still not teaching mathematics. Um I did forget to mention that they try to be, one thing they advertise this for, as was, uh they advertise it that humans learn best by analogy, because if you understand one concept and you can make an analogy to another concept, you'll have a better understanding of the other concept as well. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this. Like, I mean, this is kind of this is kind of a normal, maybe middle school problem, but still, like they are trying to just they're trying so hard to just try to make analogies to real life for their mathematics. Which, I mean, I honestly I think math is probably the best way to best thing you could analogize to because I mean it is how we model reality. And then the second highlight, have you've seen this kind of uh problem before where they give you a series of numbers and you're supposed to figure out the pattern?
Yeah.
Um have you ever heard of premature closure?
Uh, no.
Okay, so premature closure, it's a thing that most people do. And it's once you have you think you have figured out the solution, you stop you stop looking for the pattern. And one example that the guy who explained it to me, he gave me an example of like 148. What's the pattern there?
Um, going up by 4?
Well, no, it's 3 then 4.
Right.
But but so do you think you know what the pattern is?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Well, a lot of people would look at that and say, okay, well, 3 then 4, so the next one would be 13 because 8 plus 5 is 13. But that's not the pattern. The pattern is just each number is bigger.
Ah.
And so, like, I don't know. This isn't necessarily strictly about IBLP, but I do, after learning about premature closure, this kind of math problem kind of makes me say, I think that's not great to teach kids to find this pattern and then stop looking. You should be looking for other
Multiple.
solutions. Yeah,
Yeah.
multiple solutions and see if there's any other things that could fit. Let's see. My next one is on page 49. Oh yeah. So here, enthusiasm, we've got musical notes, which like doesn't have anything to do with math at all. I mean, I guess you do use like quarter notes and half notes and stuff, and so that they use that, but what does that have to do with what they're asking? They're asking you to fill in these last two notes so that it matches. And that's just not math at all.
Well, but it is music, and their musical education is education, and you know it kind of works.
Yeah. Okay.
Like if you're educating your kids, I don't mind them learning music.
All right. This is the juicy section, in my opinion.
All right, let's go.
All right. So this first highlight I have, if you see, it says, if we fail to study each subject as it relates to God, we will be in danger of the spiritual and intellectual plunder which Satan brings through. And so like they're trying to scare you from going outside of their prescribed curriculum to get
For sure.
an education. Because if you do, you're going to get lies from Satan and be corrupted and you won't be a pure vessel for God or whatever. And it's so that's gross. Second highlight I have is there are three things which scripture identifies as wonderful. The first one is the works of God. Then the second one is the creation of man. And then the third one is the plagues of Egypt. Do you see any problems there?
Well, yeah, several. I'd want to see where it said that those things are wonderful.
Sure.
I'm also you can't prove a negative. So that the Bible says these things are wonderful doesn't mean other things aren't wonderful. But also, why are the plagues wonderful?
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's the thing I see with that. First of all, you got the works of God is the first thing, the creation of man, which is also a work of God, and the plagues of
Yeah.
Egypt, which is also a work of God. So
Right.
like you basically just got the works of God in this list. And I agree
Yeah.
with you. The plagues of Egypt, why is that wonderful? I mean, if you're going to say three things are wonderful, and you're going to highlight three things that God has done that are wonderful, and the plagues of Egypt makes the list. I mean, what the hell?
I mean, I would have gone with Christ.
Yeah. Or
Creation,
yeah.
rainbow. Uh,
I mean, at least they didn't say the flood. So, um, and then the last thing I highlighted is evolution is a foundational tenet of the religion of humanism. And like, I mean, I didn't know this at the time because obviously I learned from this, so I didn't know what humanism was. But humanism has been around for centuries, like centuries longer than the theory of evolution has. So
yeah.
it can't be foundational to humanism. Humanism is predates predates evolution. So like they're just making stuff up and portraying they're portraying. I mean, obviously, as a young Earth creationist organization, they're not going to say evolution is good,
Right.
but they're just misrepresenting it so badly, and it's just boggles my mind that they did get away with it because they did. I didn't know, not until actually, yeah, not it was actually what first led me to know that humanism that evolution didn't predate humanism was watching the
What?
Tudors and one of the characters says, "Hey, we're I like this book. It's based on real humanist principles." I was like, "Humanism? Well, this is like way before Darwin."
Right.
So,
Right. Well, I mean, so it's one of the better ways to lie to people is you don't tell them what's not true. You use some of the words that are not true and some that are, so that when someone tries to discuss things with them later, they're like, You just don't understand."
right,
And so by predefining what things are, uh, and then giving wrong information, uh, kind of like there's in this last election, um, I know that Russia did it some, but it was one of the popular like auto-generated memes to make people upset was I don't think we should have Pride Month until we have a month for veterans.
okay,
And I saw this several dozen times. And I know this because I reported it every single time because we have 2 months for veterans already.
well, we have months or holidays.
Months.
Okay,
We have 1 month for veterans and 1 month for veterans' families. Um, but by making the statement, you get people upset, and it doesn't matter if you then later are like, no, no, that's actually not true. They're already mad.
right,
And they're not going to listen to reason because they've already decided what they're upset about.
R-
And so you're like humanism, evolution, problem. And then the Christian people that hear this are like, yeah, that's a problem. And they never want to hear anything else. Because so you want to touch on these other religions, these other philosophies, so that you can give them just enough information that they will automatically reject it and debunk it without actually knowing anything about it.
right, yeah, for
Super
sure.
toxic.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, evolution is that way. I so many times I hear people and they say, you know, this scientific theory says this or this scientific theory says that. The most common ones would be evolution and Big Bang, and it's like, well, that's not what that says. And I don't even have a very great understanding of these things, but I know that what you're saying is wrong. It's just not what it is. But but because they've only gotten their knowledge of what this says from people who are misrepresenting it in order to keep their narrative from intact. These people, they don't know. They think they know and they don't.
Yeah.
Did you have anything on this page? Because I figured you would have some things to say about this section for sure. I had a lot to say about this section.
I didn't get to it. I had a rough week.
Oh, okay.
I only got to like the first 4 pages.
Okay. All right. So here we go. On page 54, we've got so this first one, it says anyone who believes that an unborn child is not a person thereby denies the personhood of Christ while he was in the womb. And I just thought that was an interesting take. I don't remember hearing that as an argument for the pro-life crowd.
Oh, it's there.
I mean, I'd heard the fetus is a person, but I never heard it like directly tied to the personhood of Christ.
Right, because of the thing with Elizabeth.
Sure, yeah. I just thought I don't remember that part of it ever being brought up to me. I mean, obviously it was because I'd read this, but I don't remember. It never clicked with me that was a thing.
Well, it's just the disingenuous part is that they treat that verse about Mary's John the Baptist in Mary's womb recognizing Jesus in his womb, and that passage in Jeremiah and that passage in Isaiah, and they're like, see, life begins at conception. Never mind about Numbers 5.
Right.
Like, you can't hold scripture in context with some scripture and not the rest of scripture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they deny that Numbers 5 is about abortion. It's about a lady's leg rotting off so that she's a one-legged person now.
Only if you completely ignore scholarly translation.
Well,
which I mean, a lot of Bibles do.
I mean, of course they ignore that. Remember what I said about what they said back here, where it says, not letting Satan influence your study.
Ah, right.
The second highlight I have on this page is they talk about creator, and this is from like 1984, 1985 is when this was written, and so they hadn't done the switch over. The creationists hadn't switched over to the term intelligent designer. They were still using creator.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, I wonder if they would have, if the IBLP would have ever switched over to intelligent designer, or if they would have kept with, if I had material from today, if it's still going to say creator, because like the ATI, they still have some of these books are still available on their website, but I'm not paying for them.
Sure, of course not. I don't know, man. I'll bet do they still do the Basic Institute?
I don't think they do them like in person, but you can watch the whole seminar and get the books on their website for free.
Is it still like the original Bill Gothard VHS tape?
It's still the ones we watched.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like, yes, he's a convicted sexual predator, but yeah, we're not going to re-record this stuff. It's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, he wasn't a sexual predator then, so that's the past him that wasn't a sexual predator. We got a comment from Deviant. It says, it's a conflation of concepts. Jesus was God. Mary's pregnancy was a magical event. You can't mix magic with reality. It's like sawing a person in half and bring surprise when the cops come knocking. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's why it never hit with me that they were, because obviously Christ existed before the conception of Jesus. Like he existed since the beginning of the world. So like he didn't become a
Maybe.
person when at the conception. So that I don't know whether or not a normal fetus would be a person or not. Christ would still be a person in the womb because he already existed anyway.
Right.
So that I mean to me that just doesn't make that wouldn't have made sense even as a if they made that. I said, well, you're talking about two different things here. Okay, so this next one is genetic engine. This is where the false philosophy is genetic engineering. I don't know what this has to do with Son of Man physiology. Uh, how those compare with the false philosophy of genetic engineering. Um, but they say genetic engineering is the branch of science that which is endeavoring to manufacture life in a laboratory and to manipulate the structure of that life. If man can
Mm.
create life, then life is his to destroy as well, or he will be in control. And like I don't know if they know this, but like there's nothing that we eat or breed that hasn't been genetically engineered by man. Like that's just kind of how everything has been.
Think so?
Uh maybe like if you hunt wild animals, I guess those haven't, but any cows have been like anything
Mhm.
we breed has been genetically manipulated
Right.
through artificial selection. So like every plant that we everything that farmers grow, everything that people livestock we have, it's
Mhm.
all not the way it was before we got a hold
Oh,
of
I know.
it. So yeah, we've been doing genetic engineering for a very long time.
Yeah, I went to this, weird little, like, Christian cultist place, felt like, but it was it was my ex-girlfriend, and, she was real into fiber arts, like, she has a spinning wheel and into historical fiber arts, and found this place where they have their own sheep, and every so often they do a work weekend where they get a bunch of crafters to come in, and they do what they call a sheep to shawl, where they like shear all the sheep, and then throughout the course of a weekend, do the wool and they spin the wool and they clean the wool and they make the wool into yarn and they make a blanket.
Sure.
And she was like, "Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna go show up for that." And want to be a good boyfriend, so I'm like, "All right, well, we'll go do that." Uh, but I'm fucking bored, so I go read in the car, uh, and then fall asleep because like I'm there, but I'm not gonna hang out with the Christian stuff. Not into that. And she comes out and she's just freaked out because she's like, they are lying. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? And she's like, they're going on and on about how God made sheep to be docile and sit and be ready to be dealt with by the shepherd. And that's not true. We bred them for that. We did a lot of work to breed them for that.
Right. Well, and also the fact that like how much we have to shear them. I mean, that's something we bred into them as well.
Right. Right. Like the sheep originally did not need us, but that is not what the people taught.
Right. Huh. I mean, when you deny reality, you can just make up whatever you want and
Sure.
believe it. Okay, so we got this next highlight. The third aspect of the wonderful works of God are the plagues that he allows in the lives of those who live contrary to his principles. What do you think about that?
It's wonderful.
Oh yeah. My notes on this are sickness is a moral failing, plagues are a moral failing. It's so gross that like if you're sick, it's because you did wrong.
I am
And
so angry by this.
and you need to fix what you're doing wrong or you won't get better.
Right.
and that's hurt so many people
Like
because
mom.
yeah, like mom, like people they don't go to the doctor when they could get help, they could get healed, but because they've been told that it's because of something that they're doing wrong,
Hmm.
they spend their time trying to fix what they're doing wrong, and they may not even be doing anything wrong.
Yeah, sometimes you just get sick.
Yeah,
Sometimes the body's natural processes don't work uh perfectly.
yeah. And so here we go to the false philosophy that's related to this. Um, Medical treatment based on humanistic propositions works at cross purposes with God. On the one hand, it destroys the value of life by turning the normal birth process into a surgical ordeal, encouraging sterilization, performing many unnecessary hysterectomies, providing destructive birth control, and finally killing unborn children and unwanted babies. On the other hand, it seeks to prolong life in artificial ways and circumvent God's physical judgment for wicked lifestyles. And it's like, and that's the same thing. Like, it's not just don't go fix your spiritual problem because that's why you're really sick, and the doctor will just treat the symptoms of why you're sick. But it's actually immoral to go to the doctor
Yeah, because
because
you're denying the judgment of God for
yeah, um, and then
like
the yeah.
if you get sick, go to your pastor first, not your doctor, because maybe he'll have spiritual insight.
Well, not just go to your pastor first and not your doctor. Don't even go to your doctor because it's immoral to do that.
Hmm.
Like that's I'm surprised so many people in the IBLP are still alive.
Dude, it's a franchise system for cults.
Yeah.
Like, don't go to your doctor, don't go to your teachers, don't go to your parents, because your parents are under the authority of this cult leader. So you need to go and report in to your cult leader and find out what they think.
Mm-hmm. The other note is I just don't know how they know how many unnecessary hysterectomies are being performed. Like that's they singled that out in their list of things that are going on, and it's like of all the different surgeries and things we can have, it's the unnecessary hysterectomies, and we know they're unnecessary. It's like, where are you getting this?
Yeah, I'm well, I'm sure Mr. Gothard is an expert on the female reproductive system and hysterectomies,
Yeah,
having never been married or had kids.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just that was super weird to me. Did you? Oh yeah, you didn't read this one. Okay, so let's move on to the next page, and we've got pseudopsychology.
Pseudo.
Yeah, pseudopsychology. That's the false philosophy.
Hey,
Um,
Panda said something.
says, oh, that's why I didn't go help for CPTSD for so long. I just knew that if I prayed enough, that I would be healed. Exactly. I mean, and people that who buy into this, they do that. It's. I don't think it's quite as bad as or at least it wasn't in our family. It wasn't quite as bad as like say Scientology because we would still go to the doctor when we were sick, but still, it's pretty harmful to have this as your ideology.
I mean, I don't know if you can say that, man. Like,
Well, I can say that none of us died from not going to the doctor.
no, we didn't die from not going to the doctor, but uh our lives would have been a lot different if mom and dad had got grief counseling.
That's true. You're
Our lives
you're
would
you're right. You're right. The
our
the
lives would have been a lot different if when dad's business started to fail, if he hadn't been like, well, I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll cast lots and just keep going at it because that's what God wants.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like
It
years of suffering for no reason.
because it was God's will, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we didn't die, but they suffered, and so did we.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, on to this pseudopsychology. So I mean, they've flipped the script here. The Christian God-based counseling is the pseudopsychology, and they're calling the real psychology pseudopsychology. That's my first note.
Yeah, for sure.
And then so psychology based on human reasoning confines itself to the study of man's soul, the psyche.
Ah,
Consequently, it is not able to accurately identify the real causes which affect man's mind, will, and emotions, which of course is spiritual. Uh, I mean, again, it's just like everything else. It's spiritual causes for it all. It's not, and uh, the accredited medical community and psychological community, they just don't acknowledge the spiritual, so they can't properly treat anything.
well, how could they? They don't know about the soul.
I mean, yeah, I mean they don't know that when you wreck, it's because you masturbated yesterday,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
obviously. Okay. Let's see. They had page 55 twice, so we'll skip that. Page 56, we've got yeah, so Panda says bullshit. No thetic counseling drove me to the brink. It is. You've
What
got
is
it.
nothetic counseling?
I'm not sure. Let me look at that up. I assume it's uh Christian based counseling. Yeah, it's pastoral counseling that uses the Bible to address problems and change a person's behavior. Uh,
Huh? Huh?
So,
Huh?
so,
Huh?
so, I mean,
Well,
the way I look at it now is, you know, and what doesn't make sense to me is like we look at this stuff and we just say, okay, what's working the best? Let's do that. What's
right,
working the best for the most people, and that's what we should do.
right.
And the Christians are like, no, that's it does just because the numbers of people that are being helped by this is more than the number of people that are being helped by ours. It's just wrong. It's you're missing it. And but the numbers don't lie, you know.
I mean, I agree, but man, have you ever been to Christian counseling?
No, no, I have not.
Dude, it's a trip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like just compared to regular therapy, the amount of like, no, you're wrong. I know this because I'm the authority is so strong in Christian counseling.
Huh.
Like I'm in therapy right now, and uh, for obvious reasons, I think my therapist shies away from absolute statements. You know, she's not a Sith.
Sure.
Um, Ah! but the the Christian counselor was like, "Oh no, you can't have a marriage if you don't have access to everybody's passwords.
Really?
That's just not biblical."
In counseling?
Yeah,
Weird.
yeah. She like when my marriage was having trouble, you know, partially because my ex was unfaithful. Uh, they were like, "No, no, you should give each other all the passwords. That's the only way to no, that's the only way to trust today." And I'm like, "Really?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, here's a verse." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
And
And
did they have a verse that said, "Thou shalt know thy wife's passwords"?
no, it was about
Oh,
as
okay.
it was about as good as this stuff. But I was like, oh, they had a verse, so we got to share passwords. And my ex-wife was like, no, that's you're on their side, and I'm like, I'm just trying to work it out.
Huh.
But yeah, like,
Yeah.
and it also doesn't teach. Panda's right. Doesn't teach for acceptance. Doesn't teach forgiveness,
Yeah.
which is weird. You'd think it would teach forgiveness.
Huh.
Figure that'd be fairly important. But they with I feel like with the freedom to base their uh professional opinion on more than the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual,
Yeah.
that they're like, we also have the Bible, and then we also have Christian philosophy books, and it allows them to be basically to do whatever they think is best.
It allows them to ignore the statistics if they want to.
Right.
And that's dangerous, because if you're ignoring the statistics, you are almost by definition not necessarily doing what's statistically best. And
Right. I
that's
mean, you are portraying yourself as a professional subject matter expert while ignoring the subject matter
yeah.
and reading it through a lens of, well, basically whatever you decide is important.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You ready to move on?
Sure.
Okay. So we've got here page 56. I only have one highlight on it, and it says the yeah, deviant for sure. Deviant says, yeah, a successful marriage is built on upon mistrust. Wonderful. Not communication, respect, equality. No, screw that, mistrust. That's the way.
Yep. That's
Makes her so mad she can barely joke about it. Um,
I will say it didn't work.
yeah. I mean, that's, yeah. I mean, mistrust is not a way to build a trusting relationship, for sure. It just, the idea that it could is just, I don't even know how you could get to thinking that. So, all right. So we've got the false philosophy, prehistoric man in primitive societies. The basic deception is that man is improving with time, and factors other than immorality cause civilizations to collapse. And like, I've heard this a lot. I remember hearing this, that, that empires fall when the populace becomes immoral. And, honestly, I don't really know about that. I don't know if that's true or not. But the highlighted part is, the facts now prove that these primitive people are actually decadent descendants of civilizations that were more advanced in many ways than we are. My note on that was, I don't think there's any civilization that was more advanced than we are today.
Well, I mean,
In the past. Right?
ancient Rome, they only got to dial up. So
yeah, I mean, it's absurd on the face of it, at least, for sure. So
what I wonder what they're thinking is more advanced than we are.
I have no idea. It boggles my mind. Even I don't know what they could be thinking of. They're just, it would have to be some kind of like philosophy or something more advanced.
Are we talking Atlantis?
Maybe. Yeah. So I thought it was weird for them to just say that. And I remember hearing this when I was a kid, and I don't remember really accepting it. I said, well, maybe they, I mean, obviously, when like there's a societal collapse, you're going to have, more primitive times right after that societal collapse. When people have to, like, farm to just survive, they're not going to spend time learning about things that aren't farming. So you're gonna lose that knowledge. But at this
I
point,
mean,
I don't think anyone's like ever been more knowledgeable, or any society's been ever more knowledgeable or advanced as we are. And I'd say that's probably true for the last 300 or 400 years at least.
I mean, as a human species, like I don't think there's any like it's not like America's doing better than another country, but as a species, I think we are as advanced as we've ever been right now.
Yeah, yeah. So it's just absurd on the face of it, like I said.
Yeah. Um, and I was going to say something. Oh,
What was
right.
it?
It's very much this idea that civilizations fall because they get decadent is very much a correlation and causation fallacy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I it seems like that to me on the face of it. I just don't know enough to know if there actually is a causation there.
Not really. Like we Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a pretty well understood principle, right?
Uh huh.
Where if you don't have this thing, it becomes the most important and you stop caring about this. And so like, for example, uh moral belief is a higher tier level than food.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you don't have food, you probably won't care that it's right or wrong to steal bread.
Sure. Yeah.
And so when society collapses and things stop working, there will also be a moral collapse.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so what I remember hearing is like the Roman Empire.
Right.
Um. That yeah, there was people stealing and stuff afterwards, but I remember hearing that they were had gotten morally decadent before the collapse.
Sure.
Um, with orgies and the coliseums and all that stuff.
Yeah, that is definitely a narrative that is taught and was taught to me, but it's just not true.
Sure.
Like uh, the idea that ancient Rome was morally superior to later Rome is just a myth. Like uh, the gladiatorial games were much worse earlier in the Republic than at the end.
Okay.
Um, like one of the biggest reasons Rome fell was the invention of the stirrup and heavy cavalry. Military technology moved beyond them, and they didn't change.
Okay. We got a comment from Deviant. It says the basic deception is that man is basically good. Today's criminals are protected by their ability to plead temporary insanity, even if convicted. Repeated appeals clog the courts. And where to begin with that? It's not only false, if you draw it to its real life conclusion, it's immoral to the core and the end of human rights. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm to say that this is problematic, that anything about the IBLP is not problematic would be an understatement for sure. But yeah, I think the idea that man is not basically good is probably pretty. I don't think that's limited to just the IBLP. That's pretty ubiquitous in Christian theology, I would say. Because
Man is evil. Yeah.
yeah, I'm because of the fall, we're all partakers in the evilness of Adam's sin. All right, let's move on to the next page. We've got geology. Geology is the records of God's past judgments upon the land for the sins of its inhabitants. Soil that abounds with thorns and thistles is God's reminder to us of Adam's sin. Strata of sediment and erosion formations in terrain are lasting monuments of the worldwide flood which judged the sins of civilizations in Noah's day. Expanding deserts are evidences of God's judgment for sin. He withholds the rain, directs invading armies to cut down trees, or brings locust plagues to devour the land. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and violent storms are further demonstrations of God's might in judgment. I mean, yeah. I mean, again, it's that through line of everything that happens, there's a spiritual reason for it.
That is the most can you clip this?
Clip what?
What you just said? Like, can you make a clip of this video?
I'm not sure. I probably can. Let
Uh,
me make a note of what time code it is.
okay. Because once a year, uh, I have the opportunity. I get asked to go back to one of my former professors and do a presentation on medieval arms and armor. And she's a geology professor who's really cool. I definitely want to send her this clip because clearly she doesn't know about the strata of sediment and erosions being lasting monuments to the worldwide flood. Uh, this will change her whole curriculum.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, yeah, that the idea that the geological column is from the flood. That's pretty ubiquitous. That's not unique to these guys.
No, no.
But just like volcanoes are, it's so magical thinking. It's almost ridiculously magical thinking.
I mean,
Like I feel like we're in Pompeii. You know?
yeah, like we are not very far from, you know, in like this philosophy is not very far from let's throw a virgin in a volcano.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. Huh. All right. The next one is humanistic geologists require billions of years to add plausibilities to their theories and of the origin and present condition of the Earth's surface. And I mean, like, they're just misrepresenting it. It's they didn't say billions of years because that's what it required. They said billions of years because that's what, when you start looking at, hey, how do we date this, and you start finding methods to date this stuff, that's what it comes. That's what the answer comes to, you know. And but
It's billions of years because lead exists.
yeah, yeah. So
Have you heard that one?
it's billions of years. No, I hadn't heard that before.
Um, so lead is the half life, like the
Yeah, I
decayed
know. Yeah, I
state.
know one of the elements will decay into lead. I know that.
Right. It takes over a billion years. So the existence of lead proves the Earth is over a billion years old.
Right.
It,
Okay.
it, it takes that long for lead to exist. We got a lot of lead. The Earth is old.
Okay. I thought you were being sarcastic.
No.
Okay.
Oh, that's like,
I thought it sounded like you were being like making an argument that a young Earth creationist would make.
no,
Or
like if you understand metallurgy, which I do a little bit, thanks to blacksmithing and paw. I'm like, okay, yeah, lead. That's how lead works. And for lead to be the way it does, it has to sit and cool for like a billion years.
right. Yeah. So, but it's just more misrepresentation of science,
Yeah.
and that's all they do. Okay, we've got here. Music is a form of worship. Its rightful employment is to reflect the holiness of God and to praise the mighty acts of God. God intends for all art forms to symbolize spiritual truth and be consistent with his character. God created earthly things to be object lessons for heavenly realities. All music, art, and literature must glorify God. It must be pure, orderly, and edifying. And my note was, oh, um, oh yeah, we'll get to that second. I didn't make a note for that. So, I mean, it's just like It's just art is reflective of your spiritual health. And if you don't have art that Bill Gothard likes, you're spiritually unhealthy.
Right.
Uh,
Man. Like
uh,
when you started reading that phrase, do you remember the American Presidents,
yeah,
the band?
yeah. Didn't they sing
Uh,
Peaches?
they might have done Peaches. I was thinking of the song.
Oh, that was Crash Test Dummies.
Crash Test Dummies. I was thinking of. So I was thinking of that song where they've got the verse about the girl who goes to church, and I'm like, yeah, this this music's gotta glorify God. Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would. Oh, Gothard's too old to go fuck with right now, but I kind of wouldn't want to go and be like, "Hey, man, what about this?"
Yeah. And then their false philosophy is music and art and literature are amoral. The false assumption is that every person is basically good, therefore whatever he or she creates is also good. And I wouldn't say that all music is good. There's some that I think is like really bad, but not morally bad. It's just really unpleasant to listen to.
I wonder if that's why I'm judgy of some music.
I don't know. I don't I don't I don't feel judgy about music. I just there's music I like and music I don't, but it's like that's just not for me. Someone else likes it. But I don't know.
I don't like music that glorifies mediocrity.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like I'm not opposed to like country music, but I'm opposed to country music that pushes acceptance of like there's a song about your dream home being a double wide trailer and your tractor being sexy and stuff like that. And like you're telling people to accept that they can't be better than themselves, and I really don't like that.
Huh. See,
I
I mean I don't know the song you're talking about, but like it, if you want to live in a double wide trailer because that's what you want to do, who am I to tell you no? I mean,
I mean that might be true, and I could definitely be wrong, but it bothers me when and it's not just country music. There's a lot of music that doesn't uplift and it doesn't think about anything, and maybe it's because I had this. Uh, maybe that's something I need to deprogram.
yeah, maybe. And on the other hand, I mean, if you don't like music, there's nothing wrong with not liking music. There's plenty of music that I'm like, I don't like.
Well, sure, and but I want to know if I don't like it because I don't like it, or if I don't like it because I have some moral objection to it.
Well, that's true. I don't. There's no. I don't think there's any music I don't like that because it's morally objectionable, except maybe some of the more rapey music. I probably would say that's probably not great morally.
A little bit of rape, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's
Hopefully,
biblical.
hopefully I don't get demonetized for that. All right.
um,
I'm not worried about it. I'm not monetized. I don't think I ever would want to be. I just want to put stuff out there.
right.
Um. All right. Now we got mathematics. Um.
Mathematics.
Yeah. That. So mathematics confirms the fact that there are absolutes in life, and
Uh-huh.
that we can make accurate calculations based on them. And what was my note? My note was it's weird to me to think how they think mathematics again. That's that Platonic ideal. And it's just math is how we model reality, and that's all it is. Like if you think about it, math that's everything mathematics is modeling reality. Like if you have one apple and you have another apple, you have two apples. That's where we get one plus one. You know,
I did it with chairs, but
sure,
okay.
sure, but no matter what, every mathematics has no purpose and no like the only thing it does is model reality. Like I came to that realization while reading this when I was thinking, oh, actually That's all it does is model reality. It doesn't do anything but that. So,
Yeah.
so it's just weird to me that like they're like, I don't know, the way they view mathematics is just weird to me. I
As opposed to the way they view everything else.
no, everything they view is weird, but mathematics is weird too. Let's
Fair
see.
enough.
So the next highlight is radical surgery is being recommended for those in high risk categories for cancer. This preventative surgery is devoid of the knowledge that by following God's principles, even a high risk person will avoid disciplinary diseases. And that is,
Holy shit.
yeah, that is just gross. It's, you can cure cancer by getting right with God. And it's like, that isn't how cancer works, like at all. And it's really gross. And I keep saying that. I don't know what else to call it. It's
People would die from that.
right. Yeah. I'm sure people have.
Yeah, like that.
Like, yeah. It's yeah. Um
How does anybody believe this stuff?
I, I mean that's how they get you. They reel you in with this like stuff that does sound right, sounds decent.
Mm-hmm.
And when they in the basic seminar when they talk about like how to get rid of bad habits and get rid of addictions, like some of that stuff is like, okay, I think that could work.
Right.
And then they just incrementally bring it on and it gets a little bit worse and a little bit worse until they've twisted your whole way of thinking. And so you can't, they've molded your thinking so that you can't see anything but what they tell you.
Uh-huh.
And at this point, you're like, I've got cancer because I'm sinning. And if I just stop sinning, I'll get my cancer will go away. And it's, yeah. So I'm just glad none of us had cancer because we would probably not be here now. Maybe I don't think our parents bought into that much, to be honest. I think they still would have taken us
No, I think the health problems we had were
more psychological.
no, I was just going to say more to do with the complete failure of the American healthcare system.
Well, that too, but I do think they did ignore psychological problems we might have had, uh, because of this stuff.
Well,
That
partially because of this, and also partially because there was. I mean, that was a different time. We
that's
did
true.
not know. Like we're on what DSM-6 now or 7?
I think last time I looked, I thought it was just still 5, but I don't know. I'm not a psychologist or
Right.
psychiatrist.
I'm pretty sure it's on 7 now. But when I took psychology, it was in like
Deviant
2002.
saying it's still DSM-5.
Okay. It was DSM-4. And so in the 80s they would have had less knowledge. And so like there literally was less understanding about ADHD and autism
Sure.
and stuff like that and how to treat it. Um and it wasn't just because of this particular philosophy. There was a worldwide lack of understanding.
Well, sure. I mean that's actually we'll get into this in the next point. I mean that's to be expected. You know,
Yeah.
we don't have knowledge until we have it. So like you would expect, for the most part, people in the past will have less knowledge than we have today. Um. So
That's not what your book said.
no,
They
that's
used to
not.
be better.
Yeah, I know. Which brings us into the next one, which is the basic deception is that truth is constantly changing. Humanistic logic begins with the theory, which is observed until it becomes a thesis. Reaction to this thesis is called antithesis. As these two discussions converge, a synthesis is formed. This synthesis becomes a new thesis, and the process repeats itself. By this process, men are ever learning and never able to come to knowledge of truth. Now, in some ways, they're hitting on something that I do agree with, which is, um, I I believe truth exists. And truth is like, I forget what it's called, but there's the definition of truth, which is truth is that which correlates with or comports to reality. I don't really agree with that exactly. I modify it. I think truth is that which comports to context. So if your reality is your context, truth is that which comports to the reality. But if Spider-Man comics are your context, then truth is that which comports to Spider-Man comics. If that makes sense.
I find it funny that you're like, I don't like when people argue about the meaning of words, and then you say stuff like that.
Why?
Because that was pretty philosophical, man.
So philosophers, in my opinion, the best philosophers don't argue about the meaning of words. They clarify the meaning for the conversation, but they don't say, well, you meant this when you said that, because it doesn't matter what you think they meant. To me, that's the best philosophers do that.
Right, but you're like, that's not what truth means. Truth means this in this context, but not this context because
Well,
it's fine. Like, I'm not picking on you. We should move on.
Yeah. But so my thought is, they're saying truth is constantly changing. What I was getting to is, okay, so if truth is that in the context of reality, because that's most people, when they say truth, that's what they're talking about. Reality isn't changing. Or, I mean, it does change, but like the fundamentals of reality aren't changing. So I don't think truth is constantly changing. I think they're lying here, but they are talking about something, which is our understanding of the truth is constantly changing.
That's true.
And I mean, it's like, yeah, as we learn more stuff, we learn more stuff we didn't know before. And if you learn something new and you just reject it because you didn't know it before. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're like, we learn new things, but we're going to reject it because we didn't know it before. And it's like, that just is fundamentally a stupid thing to do, in my opinion.
Which is another really good reason not to go with the King James version.
Right. Exactly.
We've gotten better scholarship research. We've got better archaeology. We've got more manuscript evidence in the last, 400 years.
Right.
And also, the English language, as written, doesn't work quite the way it does.
Okay, we've got Panda and Deviant are both saying that DSM 6 is about to be released sometime in the next few years.
Okay.
So we're
Cool.
still DSM 5. DSM 6 is imminent.
Cool. Man, we got live fact checking.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not an expert. Just theorizing. But my point that we knew less then than we do now I think is still valid, despite my knowledge of DSM being inaccurate.
Well, no, that's just an example. You now knew something you didn't know before. So you shouldn't dogmatically say, no, we're on DSM 7.
I don't know, man. Assuming that I know something now is putting a lot of weight on me.
Sure.
I know nothing, as Sergeant Schultz taught us.
I think that was Socrates. But
I learned it from Sergeant Schultz in Hogan's Heroes.
Ah, okay. Oh, right. That I forgot about that guy. Okay.
Well, you get your philosophy from where you want it. I'll get it from where I want it.
Fair enough.
Sergeant Schultz is doing fine by me. You keep your Plato.
All right. So only one highlight on page 60. All power comes from above and are under the government. And as you predicted, they're hinting at the umbrella. So I don't really have much else to say about that one.
That's not true. All power comes from Mother Earth. That's why you got to stand firm.
Yeah. I didn't I so
That's a
uh
kung fu thing.
so what happened here? I have a note on this page. What happened was I highlighted it and didn't save it, and when I went back, I noticed I didn't save the highlights. And when I came back and looked at it, um, I couldn't figure out what I was making this note about. But somewhere they talk about how uh, Christians shouldn't be involved in rule or something, which I don't know that IBLP follows that, but that Christians should be, focused uh, on spiritual things and not on ruling a country. And I just like, hey, it's interesting to see a fundamentalist organization that isn't a Christian nationalist, because like IBLP would be the textbook Christian nationalists in my
I
opinion.
mean, I think they are.
Yeah, I think at in reality they are, but they're saying they're not, which is even saying they're not. Like I don't think any Christian nationalist today would say they're not. They may not say they're not Christian nationalists, but they would say that they should be in charge of making the laws.
No, they just want the world to be good, man.
Right, but they would say, and the only way to do that is by putting us in charge. I mean, they say
But
that.
no, they don't want to be in charge. It's a burden that they would accept, and when the crisis is over, they will lay down these emergency powers, just like the emperor did.
Right. Yeah. But that's this story, and it's just it's talking about the history of their version of the history of law, starting with Charlemagne and God's law in the Torah, Alfred the Great, Magna Carta, uh, then early United.
Charlemagne,
Yeah, Charlemagne. He's at the very beginning.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
they talk about how he like memorized entire passages of the Bible because he was illiterate,
Right.
and really focused on his what he memorized as when making laws and stuff.
Sure, sure. It's just kind of funny that they're like, you know, Charlemagne, the origin of law, not Hammurabi, who was the origin of the writings that the Bible was based on.
Well, they can't acknowledge Hammurabi because if they do that, it predates what they say is the origin of law, and
Right.
that can't be. So they
Would
can't.
it would also predate the origin of the Bible,
Right.
and definitely can't do that.
Yeah. So anyway, Deviant says, I'd say that's a blatant lie on the part of the IBLP. They absolutely want to actively actively works to create a theocracy. It's in that documentary. I can't remember. Are you talking about Shiny Happy People? Yes, I know. That Shiny Have you seen Shiny Happy People, T?
Yeah, it's good shit.
It is. It is. But yeah, they're totally.
I have never felt so seen as when I watched that show.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely was like, oh yeah, I remember that and that and that and that. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't really have any notes on this. We've got some notes on this, which is this is their medicine resource. It's 2 pages on how the mouth and vocal cords work.
Ah,
Oh,
okay.
and Deviant
Okay.
says, I love that for you that you were seen. And
Aw.
uh and so like again, just like with the eye thing last time, although in this one they don't really like tie it to any anything spiritual directly. They're just talking about, hey, here's how you talk. Here's how your vocal cords work. Here's how you make sounds. And it's that's it. It's just kind of randomly not and like anything else they did, and also not something a first grader should know on his second week of school. Um, and it's in there because Jesus opened his mouth and spoke, saying words, and so therefore you talk about that because why not?
Ah.
So anyway, that is the end of the book for this week. Yeah, we did want to say what the most toxic thing is. So, what do you think the most toxic thing is that they said?
That's gonna be hard.
Sure.
Um, that's hard because, like, the inherent toxicity of a just world fallacy is so toxic and gets into everything, and they hit on that several different ways.
Sure. Well,
Um,
sorry. You said just world fallacy. I'm not familiar with that. What's that?
the just world fallacy is the idea that uh, your moral behavior dictates the things that happen in life.
Okay.
So if you're a good person, good things will happen to you. If you're a bad person, bad things will happen to you.
Sure.
Um, like not just like you'll reap what you sow, but uh like what you were saying about how, like, if something bad happens, it's because God is judging you.
Sure. Yeah, and it's weaponized too because so our mom, she gets sick and she thinks it's God punishing her. But even more than that, um, it's when she sees someone else sick, she's judging that person, saying, "What is that person doing wrong?" I don't know that our mom does it, but that's what people that this type of people would do
Mhm.
because of this is it's you're you are failing. I'm sick because I'm failing, but also you are sick because you're failing. And what are you doing wrong? And it goes back to that. It goes back to the thing that stupid toxic thing from last week where they're like, I can tell by their face that they've got like, I don't even remember what it was, but some stupid.
I can tell by their face that this man doesn't take care of his kids.
Yeah, yeah, that. Oh yeah, man. I would say, I mean, so my most toxic thing is related to that, but it's definitely it's a little bit specific. It's definitely the cancer thing that you can that don't go. It's morally, and it's kind of a synthesis of several part of this thing, but it's morally wrong to go to the doctor for your cancer because your your cancer is because you're doing something wrong, and by going to the doctor, you are
Avoiding your consequences.
yeah, you're co-opting the judgment of God, and that is by far the most toxic thing I took from this book.
That's a that's so scary.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. Let's let me. I think that's the last page. I don't, and we did a most toxic thing. Let me read the last few comments. So Steven says yes, that's the one about the documentary, and she's happy that you got seen. Panda says it's a terrible ideology. I think that was in reference to the just world uh, thing that you were talking about.
I think it was in relation to anything you said.
Could be. Um, Deviant says, phew, I thought you were going to say the end. I'm starting to get addicted to this show of yours. So I don't want to hear anything about ending anything but the episode. Okay. Oh yes, for sure. See, I first of all, Deviant, thank you. I think
Yeah, it's very nice.
I'm enjoying making this. I hope T is as well. Um, but no, I don't see. Still want to keep making this. We've got 50 of these booklets, and then we've got other things we could go through if
I
we
mean,
stay interested in it.
like, at some point we should get a name.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, we got 50 of these
Like
booklets because
PEMDAS.
PEMDAS. Yeah. Well,
Well,
no,
it's
because
because of Matthew 5.
but people think we're doing math stuff, and I don't want them to come here looking for
No, no.
math stuff and find the books.
PEMDAS because of Matthew 5. I'm not being serious.
Okay.
Um,
Because it's math, right? Math, you. Anyway, okay, so but no, even we're not going to end this. We're going to keep this going. Then we got Deviant and Panda were talking to each other. So anyway, that's it. We will talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining us. Do you have any last
yeah.
words, T?
See you next week with more crazy stuff.
For,
Same weird channel, same weird guys.
for sure. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.